Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Oh, goodness. It is Tuesday, and what a beautiful evening to be outside. If you can hear, the cicadas are really starting to go crazy out here in Virginia. Virginia. So I hope everybody's ready for another cheese happy hour. We're going to Italy today. Gonna go kind of to a couple spots in Italy. Not too crazy. We're gonna wait for a couple minutes and hope that folks join in right at 6 o'clock. We delayed it a little bit today. Hi Doreen. Hi Mark. If you are joining, go ahead, say hi. Would love to hear from you. I'm at another location today, doing it outside in our backyard. My backyard for just about 20 days longer. We're gonna take a little break on Cheese Happy Hour after this episode, just so that I can focus on moving and kind of revamping and figuring out next steps forward for what we're gonna do with Cheese Happy Hour. Hopefully, do some in-person things. Hopefully, do some composed videos. Hopefully do some more with, I set up a YouTube channel, so hopefully can do a couple of different things moving forward. But also, just so you all know, restaurant life is kind of crazy right now. So do cicadas like cheese? No, they do not like cheese. They like trees. And each other right now. I think their purpose in life is to climb and to meet other cicadas in a social setting. Hopefully, we will all be meeting each other in social settings quite soon. But they do make a lovely background sound for Cheese Happy Hour. And it's 6 o'clock. Yay! Cheese Happy Hour. Going to Italy. Hopefully, you guys all bought your boxes at Arrow Wine and were able to pick them up. Hopefully, the 6 o'clock hour is a little bit easier for folks. If you have feedback, would love to hear it. Hi, Richard. Lovely to see you on the Instagrams. I'm live on Instagram, Facebook, my website, and YouTube and LinkedIn. So wherever you decide to watch, great. Hi, welcome. Lovely to see you all. If you are not on Instagram or my website, you can also pop over to either one of those platforms and you can actually participate by saying hi and chatting with me as we go along. Forgive me if I don't type back. It's just me. So anyways, tell me what you're drinking. I want to know what you're drinking tonight. Did anybody take my advice and do Italian today? I did a lot of Italian. I sent Scott a lot of Italian options for Cheese Happy Hour today. Hi, Bob. Hi, Deb. Nice to see you. And hopefully you guys took him up on some of those offers. Somebody did Fiano. Yay, Fiano! Because I threw in there like Roer Arnaise for today would be an awesome choice. It's from the north of Italy, kind of where some of these cheeses are from. Fiano is a great option. There's a couple of others that are out there that are just fabulous. Okay, yeah, great, yay, lovely. People are going crazy for the northern Italian wines. We've got Barbera d'Alba. We've got Tenuta de Tavignano. I have to admit, I went with what was cold in my fridge, which is Bouzeron. I'm going to do a little plug because this producer is fabulous. If you've never had Guy Amiot, he's fabulous. So Guy Amiot, obviously, it's not Guy, it's his great grandson, something like that, who's running the winery now. But beautiful Chassagne Montrachet. That's where they're based, and then they do Aligoté in two different kinds. We've got the Bouzeron. This is the Les Bouillots, which is a single vineyard Aligoté. Anybody ever hear of Aligoté before? you probably haven't because it's not often exported to the U.S. It's what Burgundians drink. It is the sister grape to Chardonnay. Both parent plants that made Chardonnay made Aligoté, but it does not taste like Chardonnay. You can tell that it's related to Chardonnay, but it doesn't taste like Chardonnay. Anyways, if you get a chance, Guillemot. Bouzeron is the only village in Burgundy that does not produce Chardonnay. It produces Aligoté. There's only one other exception to Chardonnay in Chablis / Burgundy, and that would be up in Chablis. There is a small town that only does Sauvignon Blanc. Saint-Prix. Anyways, welcome. My phone decided to turn off right when I wanted to see people, so I'm going to turn that back on. Great. Perfect. All right, here we go. All right, so cheese happy hour. Should we just dive right in? Anybody else want to say hi on the chat? Please do. Would love to hear from you. Say hi. We're a friendly lot around here. Okay, we're going to jump right in. I'm going to kind of show you my board for today. I posted pictures on the Instagram already, but we've got the Robiola, we've got our Taleggio. I did a little heirloom tomato because we're getting into that season, and then the beautiful Moliterno al Tartufo. I threw in a little nougat today because we are, up in Turin, and so we got to throw in a little Northern Italian, love. So I threw in a little caramel and hazelnut nougat, soft nougat, and some dried cherries alongside our beautiful acacia honey. Thank you, Scott, for including acacia honey in today's selection. It's gorgeous. So we have Robiola Due Latti as our first cheese today. Gorgeous dual milk cheese from the north of Italy. Luigi Gufanti is the producer of this particular guy today. And Luigi Gufanti is actually a really kind of a cool producer. Luigi, who is no longer with us, hasn't been around for a while, actually started his company in 1876. He began by aging Gorgonzola in an old silver mine that was abandoned up in the mountains in his little hometown in Liguria, in Longa, actually. And it's a family company. It's still in family hands. His kids started exporting cheese and actually exported it at the turn of the century to far off places like California, like Argentina. So pretty forward thinking for a turn of the century Italian producer up in a little tiny town in Italy, in Piedmont. And the company is still located in that town, in Arona. It's about 35 miles outside of Milan in a beautiful valley. And they don't use the silver mines anymore. The health department in Italy said, no, probably not a good idea for health reasons. So they actually, in 1990, they changed locations way back when to caves. And then the health department said, no, you probably shouldn't do that either. So in 1990, they actually moved into an old salami factory, which had underground aging caves that were controlled. And so they are now in this old salami factory that they've actually changed over to cheese. They still partner with a bunch of small farmers from throughout Italy. So even though they are located up in Piedmont, right in kind of like that northwest spot in Italy, they actually do produce, or I should say age and export cheeses from all over Italy. It's not just the Gorgonzola and the Northern Italian cheeses, but they do have a focus on working with small farmers in the north. And in the South, and they focus in on working with people who actually do pasture-raised animals. So that's Luigi Gufanti, who is the producer. They actually have a huge portfolio of cheeses. If you go onto their website, it's just kind of mind-blowing the number of cheeses that they actually produce and distribute across the globe. Robiolas, though. Robiolas are one of my favorite cheeses, actually. Not just because they're tasty, which they are, but they are a highly seasonal cheese. They are available year-round now, but really, traditionally, Robiolas were only produced with the first milk of the spring. So starting in mid to late March is when they would start producing these cheeses. And they're always kind of delicate. Some of them may have a rind, some of them may not have a rind. And they are usually either a square shape or a circular shape. One of the coolest thing about robiolas is that a ton of them are actually wrapped in different leaves. So you have some that are wrapped in chestnut leaves, and some are wrapped in cherry leaves, and some of them are wrapped in cabbages. You don't want to eat some of those leaves. You unwrap the cheeses and you enjoy what's inside. You don't want to necessarily eat the rinds of those cheeses either. You want to kind of peel off those rinds and just enjoy what's inside. I'm using a little chestnut cracker that I found, which is really fun, especially since in this part of the world, it's hazelnuts and chestnuts and truffles and all kinds of northern Italian goodies. Stuffed pastas are up in this part of the world. So I chose to do a little chestnut cracker because it's like, thematic and everything. Anyways, so robiolas actually, documentation for them go back to the 15th century, although there's a lot of evidence that it's actually an older tradition to make these guys. A lot of them are made with mixed milk. And the reason for that is that when animals first start producing milk, whether it be cows or sheep or goats, they actually start about the same time in terms of their lactation cycle, but none of them are actually producing a ton of milk. And the structure of the milk that they actually produce right at the beginning is really, really, really different than what's available later on in the summer when they're in full production, full tilt. The milk structure changes as the needs of their babies change. And so the milk that's done first thing in the springtime is actually really, really good for these really delicate, lovely little cheeses called robiolas. I'm going to just show you, actually, I have a little graphic that I made a long time ago for something else. This is actually the lactation cycle for all of the animals. You can see that sheep are the least productive, and cows are, and water buffalo produce the longest before they really naturally want to kind of settle down in the wintertime, in the late fall. Well, we would consider it December-ish is really kind of when they stop producing. I'm going to show you the Longa region, which is where we have this beautiful cheese from. You can see the vineyards in the foreground, the fields in the midground, and then the beautiful Alps in the background. And it's really important for the transhumanance of some of these animals that happen every single year in some of these tiny little towns in Piedmont and Lombardy. It's a really important part of the culture. So again, Robiola's first springtime milk. This one's made up of a combination of cow's milk and sheep's milk. And the sheep are actually local sheep called Longarola. That would be what these were made of traditionally. Now, Longarola sheep and actually the Torrentes cows are both, well, a little bit more endangered, although Torrentes cows are more endangered than the sheep at this point. the hold on. Sorry about that, Instagram. So Torrentese cows, they're very, very hyper localized to the Longa region and to Piedmont and to the regions in Lombardy. They we'll go into them a little bit later, but they are very, very highly endangered, almost extinct, actually, when you get down to it. The Langarola sheep, they're actually having a day, so they're a little bit more prevalent up north. Lots of traditional shepherds still have these beautiful lifestyles where they're living with their animals throughout the summer up in the high Alps, and then they bring the animals down during this summer months. So usually about this time actually is when they're coming out of the Alps and into the valley floors. So let's see here. The etymology of Robiola is actually unclear. So they think it could come from two different sources. One is there's a town named Robio up in the Alps in the Longa, and they think that it might come from that. The other thing that it could come from would be the Latin for a reddish hue called rubeolus. And the reddish hue, I kind of feel might not be as strong as the place name. And the reason for that is that the rinds turn a little reddish when they get older. But again, you want to eat them when they're like young and pretty and white and decadent, and at least I do. So anyways, those are the two potential sources for the name of Robiola. So let's see here. Oh, I forgot. You can actually adopt a Langarosa sheep if you want to. I'm trying to figure out how that is because I found it on a website, but they didn't actually include any information on how to do that. So I will get back to you if you are interested in adopting said sheep. Have I ever tried a water buffalo cheese? Yes. Several, as a matter of fact. Mozzarella di bufala, obviously, is the most famous, but there's a producer in the Veneto, actually, north of Venice, who called Quattro Patroni, and they specialize in water buffalo milk cheeses, and they make some beautiful ones. We had one on a board 2-3 times ago, Casatica de Bufala. Anyways, really, really gorgeous cheeses. Actually, water buffalo milk is the richest of all of the milks. So, little fun fact for you guys. And there are some robiolas that are made from water buffalo milk, although those are kind of newish to the market. Those are not traditional at all. Traditional robiolas would have been only made from cow's milk, goat's milk, sheep's milk, or a combination of 2 or 3 of those. I think a lot of people don't realize Latour. If you've ever had Latour is actually technically a robiola. So gorgeous, really kind of delicate flavor, a little bit tangy, a little bit earthy. You get some floral, little tiny bit of mushroom in there. Super delicious. How are you guys liking this one? Liking this one? I hope. Okay. Anyways, going back to the cows that I was talking about, the Torrentese cows actually were introduced to northern Italy by the Lombards, who conquered Italy in the sixth, a good chunk of Italy, not all of Italy, but a good chunk of especially northern Italy in the 6th century. And they actually are Germanic peoples, are from Scandinavia. You see a lot of northern Italians who have red hair and very light skin. And it's really because of the Scandinavian influence, the Celtic influence. There were a lot of Celtic peoples who were living in kind of throughout northern Italy and France and Spain. And so in some of those northern areas where those Celtic peoples were really prevalent, that's where you see a lot more of the kind of the red, fair people who look a little bit more like me in those regions. So the Lombards came in the 6th century, kind of during a power vacuum. The Romans had been conquered, and there was all kinds of chaos. And so these folks kind of took advantage. They came down from Scandinavia through Austria, Switzerland, and then inhabited northern Italy for a while. And so they brought in their own kind of native cattle, and then those cattle interbred with the native cattle in northern Italy, and they created the Torrentes cows. And this particular breed of cattle has a couple of different names. It's also called Varese, and it's used throughout northern Italy for cheese production. So it's actually used also in the next cheese, which is the world famous Taleggio. This Taleggio is pretty much perfect, if I might say so. That gorgeous rind is beautifully orange, just a little bit of kind of powdery white on it. And then the paste is super elastic right now. It's like, oh man, look at that. That's delightful. Has like a yeasty, bready quality to it. Almost tastes like white wine on your tongue, the inside. It's a little fragrant. It's not overly so. It's like a good intro to washed rind cheeses. The texture, yes, the rind is edible. On this one, it definitely is. I will say this: if I always say it's a caveat with washed rind cheeses, if the rind is like a reddish orangish hue, it looks healthy, pretty, white molds on it, maybe some blue or green molds on it, you're fine. Where you want to look out for things is if you see black mold on any rind, do not eat it. If you see acid colors like acid green, acid yellow, don't eat those. Doesn't matter whether it's a washed rind cheese or not, don't eat those. But if you ever have questions regarding rinds, please contact your cheesemonger, ask them the question. Also, if you can get a hold of the producer, they're usually the best person, the best resource to figure out whether a rind is actually edible or not. So, Taleggio. I think a lot of people have had Taleggio. I put it on there because it's so delicious when it's perfect. When it's perfect, and a lot of times you see it and it's not perfect. When it's perfect, it's just delightful. This one is actually a pasteurized version of it. It comes in both raw and pasteurized. It's a little tricky to get the raw cheese here in the U.S., mainly because it's a little tricky to get it into the U.S. at the right time for the cheese, because that 60-day mark for this cheese is right when it's kind of hitting its prime. And so to have a pasteurized cheese or a raw cheese released right when it's like perfect means that you have a very short time to actually sell that cheese, get it on shelves and sell it before it goes downhill. So it can be a little tricky to find a raw version of Taleggio, but if you do come across it, please try it because it's a really delightful treat. The producer of this is actually one that does both pasteurized and raw versions. Both are actually protected under the PDO, the DOP for this. So even though this is a pasteurized version, it is Taleggio PDO or DOP, whatever you want to call it. It is made in Lombardy. So it's actually originally from the Val Taleggio, which is located in Lombardy, about 40 miles outside of Milan, northeast, actually. But it's made in Lombardy. It's made in neighboring regions as well. So it's not just a Lombardian cheese at this point. It's actually made throughout the Alps. It for century was known as Stracchino cheese, and that was kind of the only name for it, referring to tired or exhausted is basically what the term means, and it's really in reference to what I was talking about earlier with transhumance of the animals going from the valley floors up into the Alps in the summertime, and then actually in this situation it would be when the cows have come down from the high pastures in the Alps into the valley floors, because Taleggio was traditionally only made in the fall and in the winter time. So really kind of that last little ebb of milk that was being produced by the animals once they've been taken down into the valley floors and, started to go into the barns for the wintertime. That's the time of year where this cheese would be made. Partly because it is kind of one of those ones where it needs a lot of attention. Basically, any kind of these small runny cheeses, they're made by cutting the curds really, really large. So like 1.5 inches is kind of about the size of the curd that would be used in Taleggio. And then it's like dumped into these square molds on the tables that then drain. And then they're salted and flipped. And then they drain for a couple of days. And then they are put onto these wooden boards. Traditionally, it would have been in the caves of the mountains, and the caves are actually, ironically, the caves are actually made out of limestone, which we talked about last time with Roquefort. And it's because this part of Italy, before it slammed into the European continent, forming the Alps, was actually sea sediment that was laid down. And so you have limestone, you have marl in these caves, and then the Italian peninsula, what is now the Italian peninsula, rammed into Europe, and then that formed the Alps, and then the formation of the Alps actually formed a bunch of caves. So there's caves kind of throughout Lombardy, there are caves throughout Piedmont, and these cheeses would have traditionally been aged in those types of facilities, but in this case, Ciresa, who is the producer of this cheese, actually has, they don't use natural caves to age their Taleggio. There are a few producers who do. There's I think 30% of Taleggio producers still do use natural caves for the aging process, but these folks do not. They have a facility that they built in 2003. So they are both, the company itself is actually located in Val Cesena, which is a valley that is very, very close to Lake Como. It has one of the rivulets that end up going into the Po River. And so it's a beautiful alpine scene. Should be able to pull up a picture of, actually, I'll pull up the Val Taleggio so you can see the actual valley where this comes from. You can see it's really quite lovely, 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 lovely. And then the cows, the Tarentaise cows that I was talking about, this is what they look like. Really kind of pretty. They've got like a golden hue to them, which is quite beautiful. So, hold on, let me take that graphic down so you can see me again. The cheese itself is, we think, from the 10th century. that's where the origins are. We don't have any writings about it in particular until the 13th century, but given kind of how high and isolated these locations are, it was probably a few centuries before people actually started writing down what was going on up in these high valleys. But basically what happens is that once the cheeses go onto the wooden boards, they're actually sponge bathed every week with a saltwater brine, which is actually supposed to be seawater. So you actually have people bringing seawater supposedly up from the coastal areas into the Alps to give these guys sponge baths, which is kind of delightful when you think about it. And the company, the Ciresa that makes this one, has been making cheese since 1927. He started making cheeses from local milk, and they continue to actually just pretty much focus in on traditional cheeses from Lombardy, although they do produce cheeses with, I think, every single milk type that's available. So they do cow, sheep, goat, and water buffalo. So this particular Taleggio is aged for 35 days before they release it, which is also part of the reason that this one is a pasteurized version, because they wouldn't be able to do that with a raw milk cheese here in the United States. And I just think it's a delightful version. I've had this version before. One way that you can tell that it's a PDO cheese is that if it has, like, all Taleggios are square, but the ones that are PDO have these stamps on each kind of quadrant of the square, and it looks like a circle with some letters in it, and it's basically a stylized PDO. That's what this stamp is. So that's how you know. All right. Any questions about Taleggio? How are you loving this one? Is it going with the wine? I bet it is. Totally delightful. The great thing about Taleggio is that it actually is really phenomenal in cooking methods. You could do it with risotto, which is very traditional for Lombardy. You can do it actually, if you've never had a burger with Taleggio on it, oh my gosh. Burgers with Taleggio, awesome. Oh, PDO is basically the Italian version of DOC. So it's basically a protected denomination of origin is what it stands for. So again, just like in France, Taleggio actually was the third Italian cheese to receive it, right after Gorgonzola and Parmigiano Reggiano. Those were the first two to get PDO protection, and Taleggio was the third. So a lot like in France, you have, if you're making these kinds of cheeses, you have to follow the regulations. So it has to be made from cow's milk. It has to be square. You have to follow the regiment to be able to produce a PDO cheese, and it has to be made in the regions that are under the designation. So, cool. Any other questions about either Robiola or Taleggio? No? All right, cool. We're moving on. Next, we're going all the way over to Sardinia. Beautiful island. It's huge. It's a large one. It's like 120 kilometers across, something like that. Anyways, this is a cheese. Moliterno al Tartufo is actually a cheese that's not originally from Sardinia, although now most of it is made in Sardinia. And I'll tell you about it. So Moliterno is actually named after a town in Basilicata, which is, if you're looking at the boot of Italy, right, it's the arch of the foot. So it's not a particularly wealthy region of Italy. A lot of what they do there is agriculture, but it's not a particularly fertile region. It's quite mountainous, rugged, hot. It's in southern Italy, obviously. You have a lot of chilies and olive oil and olives and things like that in terms of the actual cooking style. So it is not a region. There are sheep, because sheep are really quite hardy, and so Moliterno is a cheese that was traditionally made in this town of Moliterno in Basilicata. But in the 19th century, a gentleman by the name of Agostino Vecchio moved from Basilicata to Sardinia because he had heard of the quality of the milk that the sheep on the island, Sarda sheep, produce these beautiful milk for cheese production. And so he decided that he was going to move from his hometown to Sardinia for the purpose of making sheep's milk cheeses that are traditional, and then sending them back to Moliterno to age. So that's what he did. He moved to Sardinia. He started working with local farmers, and they would make the cheese on the island, and then they would send it back to the mainland to actually age. That happened for, a good chunk of time. I would say probably 70, 80 years. In the 70s, they actually stopped shipping the cheese back to Moliterno, and they just did the whole process on Sardinia. So now they make all of the cheeses on Sardinia, and they age them there as well. It's the family, his descendants still own and operate the fromagerie. So this is Central, is the name of the producer. They are the ones who actually came up with Moliterno al Tartufo. Moliterno and Moliterno al Tartufo are two different cheeses. So Moliterno is this cheese without any truffles in it at all. They came up with this idea of stuffing black truffles into Moliterno. And so what they do is they start the cheese out like any other Moliterno. It's made from the Sarda sheep, and they basically put the curds into these reed baskets that are handmade. And those are the forms. So if you look at the rind of this cheese, you'll see like these really deep striations on the cheese, and it's literally from the reed baskets that are used. And they age the cheese for about 2 months in plastic bags to keep the cheeses very moist. Then the cheeses are taken out of those bags, and they are injected literally with truffle puree. So I believe the truffles are from Umbria, but I haven't gotten confirmation of that. That's what I've heard, but I'm not exactly sure. They basically whip up this truffle paste. They inject it into the cheese, and then the truffle paste kind of goes into the striations, the crags in the cheese, and they age the cheese for an additional 3 months. During that time, they're actually rubbing the outside of the cheese with olive oil, and they're also cleaning it with vinegar so that it's not forming any molds or anything. So the rind itself is a little bit waxy, and that's from the olive oil treatment that it's been provided. And it's pretty clean. And that's because of the vinegar, white vinegar. If you ever have this works for full cheeses. Full cheeses, one of the things that you do to prevent bad molds from growing on the outside is to hit it with a little bit of white distilled vinegar. That's a little trick. Doesn't work on the paste, because then it starts influencing the flavor of the cheese. But it's a good trick for the molds on the outside of the cheese. So Moliterno al Tartufo is a raw milk cheese. So if you have any issues with raw milk should not eat it. All of these cheeses are made with traditional rennet. So if you are a vegetarian and take it to only wanting vegetarian cheeses, it makes it really hard to enjoy a lot of European cheeses. And that's because a lot, especially with PDO cheeses, it's specified that you have to use animal rennet in those cheeses. So just to let you know. Let's see here. I think that's it, which is kind of crazy. I was expecting to go on a little bit longer. Moliterno al Tartufo, fabulous with pears. I did like a little heirloom tomato action today just because it's southern Italy. You kind of want to pay a little homage to the food of the region that they are using these days. Clearly, tomatoes are from the Americas, so they're not all that traditional. But you know, I hope you enjoy. I love this cheese. It's truffly, but not overly so. It doesn't take over the flavor of the cheese at all. You can still get that herb and flora and like the salt that you get from Sardinia, because Sardinia is kind of got this wild, very rugged, rustic landscape, and it's known for having this beautiful garrigue, the wild herbs that grow all over the island, and that's what the sheep are feeding off of. I actually have graphics so that you can see I actually have this is very cool. This is a shepherd's hut on Sardinia, kind of towards the interior of the island, but I also have a picture of the Sarda sheep. You can see they actually have these really long coats, and you would think that they would actually be used for wool production as well. The wool is kind of coarse, and so they tried to earlier in the 20th century they tried to do crossbreeding programs to improve the quality of the wool, but it actually impacted the quality of the milk. And since the milk is really what Sarda sheep are known for, the breeding program was stopped. And so you do not have Sarda sheep that have been bred with other types of sheep at this point. They are a truly native sheep to the island. They've actually been exported to a lot of other spots in the Mediterranean, Turkey, Tunisia, things like that. So you actually have Sardinian sheep in a lot of other countries producing cheese at this point. So I hope you enjoyed that. Any questions regarding Moliterno al Tartufo? No? Gosh, guys, it's like 40 minutes in. That was lightning fast. I don't know how I did that. Yeah, would love to get feedback at this point through chat to see where you all are, and in terms of getting things going for in-person events. I know that we're going to be talking about maybe doing some events in person at Arrowine and figuring out other solutions for getting out there in the real world now that it seems like a lot of people, including myself, are fully vaccinated. Oh, great. So Lisa really loved this. Was her favorite. Cool. I love that. This one's available year round, mostly because Sardinia is a pretty warm climate. You have sheep grazing pretty much year round, so you know. All right. Any other questions, feedback, comments? Yeah. Anybody out there really interested in doing the live events, even if it's on like a Tuesday night? Hopefully so. Okay, well, we're going to take a little bit of a break, like I said, in terms of happy hours, but I'm going to be making a conscious effort to put little tidbits together, videos together, things like that, to post up on my website and on Instagram and Facebook, maybe expand outward from there. And I'm hopefully going to be expanding outward in terms of, doing different things across the city as well. So hopefully we'll be able in July or August to get some live events going in person in air conditioning, so that people can enjoy cheese in person. So with that, I want to thank all of you for your support. I really do appreciate you coming and joining me every single um, Tuesday. If we are doing live events, it will be later on in the evening. So if 6 or 6:30 works out better for you guys, just email me any questions, email me feedback. I try really hard to keep up with all of the emails that I'm being sent by you all. If you have any restrictions at all, let me know. I am going to be looking in for those who are, in other parts of Northern Virginia or in DC, where it's really hard to get over to Arlington. I am going to be working on developing relationships so that it makes it a little bit easier for you to participate in these things. So yeah, just know that if you send me an email, I do really pay attention to that, and I really want you guys to stick with me and continue to have these really fun events. And hopefully I get to put faces to all of your words now that we're going to be doing live events, in-person events, I should say. And again, if you have boards that you put together tonight and want to take pictures of, send me a picture. I'd love to put them up on the Instagrams and everything. So thank you so much, you guys. It's been an absolute joy so far. And we will work to get some things going in the future. So thanks.